will get started. So thank you so much for joining us today. This is Penn Engineering Online's admissions webinar. And today we are going to be focusing on our application. I cannot believe it, but 1 month from today is application deadline day. So 1 month from today on November 1st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, all applications are due. All application materials are due. So you have 30 more days to get those applications submitted. And that's why we wanted to spend today reviewing the application process and reviewing all of the application details with you. So that's what we're going to be doing. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jacquie Panto. I am the Associate Director of Admissions for Penn Engineering Online. And I'm also joined by my counterpart, Abby Kalkstein, and Abby is also Associate Director of Admissions for Graduate Admissions, and we work very closely together in helping potential students through the application process. So we help everyone from the moment of inquiry all the way until you're hopefully accepted into our programs. Abby and myself, with the rest of the admissions team, are really do whatever we can to provide support and to provide help through the application process. So again, today, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be detailing and going through each and every element of the application so that hopefully, if you've started your app, you can fine tune it, dot those I's, cross those T's. If you haven't started your application yet, after you get all this great information today, you'll be able to dive in and really take some pointers that we give you and some insight that we give you. So we're really excited that you're here today. And before we actually go into the elements, I just wanted to go through just a little bit of like webinar information as we go through here. Number one, we're being recorded, so there is no need to frantically take notes. Everything will be recorded, so you'll be able to go back to our YouTube channel, watch this webinar. And in fact, we house all of our webinars on our YouTube channel. It is such a great resource as you're going through the application process, as you're trying to learn about our programs. We have webinars similar to today's webinar talking about the application. We have webinars where we bring in our program directors and they talk about the programs. There's webinars with current students who talk about the student experience and all the resources. And even our alumni come and they join us and they talk about what their journey was like through the programs and what they're doing now, what the outcomes are and what they're doing now. So lots of great webinars, and I really urge you to go back and take a look at some of our past recordings as well. If you have questions today, what should you do? We want you to ask questions. So what you're going to do is use the Q&A function in Zoom, and you're going to type out your question in that Q&A function. And we have a team behind the scenes, some admissions folks behind the scenes. They'll answer those questions. They'll type answers back to you. But we're also going to save some time at the end. We'll save about 15 or 20 minutes or so. And Abby and I will go through some questions live on camera and make sure that we get all of your questions answered, all that we possibly can today. So I just wanted you to meet the rest of the team as well. So here we have, obviously myself, I introduced myself. We have our admission specialist, Bushra Ibrahim. She is behind the scenes helping to answer questions, but I'm sure many of you who either emailed in or maybe you've had office hours with Bushra. She does a great job of working with our potential students. Also, Abby Foss, she's one of our admission counselors. And again, Abby holds office hours. We do coffee chats. She's answering emails. So these are just some of the faces, trying to put a face to the name of who you may have already connected with. And you're going to meet Abby in just a little bit. She's going to go through the application elements with you. So that's some of the team that's that you'll be dealing with throughout the process. And again, just wanting to put a face to the name. So before we dive into the application elements, just very quickly, I wanted to talk about our 3-degree programs. I'm sure many of you already decided which program that you're interested in, but just in case you're still trying to decide which is right for you based on your qualifications and your background, just wanted to go through these. The MCIT, which is our Masters of Computer and Information Technology program, online program. This is our flagship program. This was our very first program that we introduced at Penn Engineering Online, and it's a first of its kind graduate level computer science program that's tailored to non-computer science majors. So you do not need a computer science degree to apply to MCIT. In fact, you can have any degree that you want to apply. You could be a lawyer, a nurse, have a nursing degree, a liberal arts degree, an economics degree. Whatever your degree is, you're eligible to apply to MCIT online. What you do need is quantitative ability. So regardless of what your degree is, you need to be able to prove quantitative ability in your application. And that usually will come through math courses, or perhaps you'll take that optional GRE that Abby will be talking about in a little bit. But one way or another, you have to be able to show proof of quantitative ability, but your degree does not matter. The other thing that I wanted to point out is the curriculum consists of 10 courses. Actually, all 3 of our programs, our degree programs, are 10 courses. The MCIT program has 6 core courses and 4 electives. And the really important thing to understand about our MCIT online program, it is the same knowledge conferred as if you were in a traditional computer science program. Okay, they're structured a little bit differently, but it is the same knowledge conferred. So it is a computer science program, same knowledge is conferred. Our second program is our Master's of Science in Engineering and Data Science program, which we call our MSEDS program online. This is designed for individuals who do have computer science background. So they're either going to have a computer science undergraduate degree or say a computer science minor. And what that means is about 4 courses, computer science core courses. So they'll have about 4 of those, which is technically a minor. And then there's also individuals that may have a highly quantitative degree. They graduated with a highly quantitative degree, a STEM degree, plus they have 2 years of work experience that they're coding and 2 years of work experience. So that's really what you need to qualify to apply for our MSEDS program. So really for folks who have the computer science knowledge and they want to take a deeper dive into the area of data science. And again, 10 courses, there's 4 core courses, 4 technical electives, and then 2 open electives with MSEDS. And then our last program, which is our brand new program, as a matter of fact, in January will be our first cohort starting. So it's a brand new program for spring 2025. And we're excited to announce our Master's of Science in Engineering in Artificial Intelligence program, otherwise known as our MSEAI online program. So like I said, it's brand new, first of its kind in any Ivy League institution. So we're the only Ivy League school as of now that's offering an MSEAI program. So in order to qualify for the MSEAI program, say that 10 times, you have to have a computer science degree or a computer engineering degree or something equivalent. And what we mean by that is some schools don't call it computer science or computing engineering. They may have a different name, a fancier name, something different. But as long as the coursework is the same as a typical computer science or computing engineering degree, then yes, you would qualify for the MSEAI program. And again, 10 courses, there are 7 core courses, 2 technical electives, and then 1 free open elective with that program. So now we're going to get into the application. I just want to give you some overall details about the application, regardless of the program that you're applying to. The application details are the same. The deadlines are the same. So in a little bit, Abby's going to be talking about all of the elements of the application, the resume, the personal statement, the transcripts, letters of recommendation, GRE, TOEFL, all of the application elements. All of those need to be submitted, like I said, by November 1st. And then we're going to return decisions on November 27th. And then your deposit will be due on December 4th. And then onboarding course will be in December. And classes will start in January. So those are our deadlines and dates to keep in mind. The good news is once you submit your application, for instance, if you submit your application, say next week, and you're missing letters of recommendation, you can log back on and there's a checklist. There's your portal, your application portal. You'll be able to keep an eye on when your recommenders submit. Perhaps you've taken a GRE test and you're submitting those scores, but we don't have them yet. Again, you can log in right to your application status portal, and you'll be able to see when those test scores are submitted or when letters of rec are submitted. So you have everything at your fingertips. You can keep on track of things. As it gets close to deadline, it gets close to that November 1st date, and you're seeing that recommendation letters aren't in, let's say, or you don't have a test score, then you want to follow up on all of that and make sure those all get in on time. Okay, so just a little bit of information about the overall application and the dates. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it over to Abby, and she's going to go through all of the application elements. So Abby, thanks so much for taking the time to be here today.
Of course, Jackie, no problem. So I am going to go through a couple of the requirements of the application. I see that many of you have already started submitting questions into the Q&A, so please keep them coming. But I know that I will be addressing some of those live within the next couple of slides. So first up is the resume. We ask that you submit a 1 or 2 page resume. It's really best to keep it as close to that 2 pages as possible, but there's a maximum of 5 pages should you need it. And we really look at your resume for a couple of different things to kind of focus in on. So we want to learn about your functional job skills, what you did, when you did it, what your responsibilities were, the breadth and depth of your experience, again, kind of that timeline of your experience, your demonstrated leadership. So that can be in your role, what your position was, if you managed people, things like that. And then if you have experience with online learning, that's obviously something that is important to us because these are online programs and they are unique in that way. So we want to make sure that you are going to feel comfortable in that environment. So if it's applicable to you, it's really great to have a section specific to any certificates you've earned related to the field, or any online learning you did specifically. So whether that's, a coding boot camp or something similar, you want to include that in your resume. And then if you have taken math courses or computer science courses, maybe outside of what is listed on your transcript, definitely include that as well in the resume and make that clear so that we know. That's especially important if you are applying to the MSCDS program, if you have an undergraduate degree in a highly quantitative field, that is, outside of computer science, but still engineering or stat, math, something similar to that. And you have the 2 years of work experience. So we'd really want to be able to see what coursework you took and what makes you eligible for that program specifically.
I also see one of the other things for any international students that joined us today or went to international schools for college. Sometimes the math courses are called, say, Math 1 or Math 2, but yet they're covering concepts, say, algebra or calculus, but the evaluators may not necessarily understand what Math 1 and Math 2 is. So because those concepts, those math concepts are so important for computer science, I see applicants sometimes spell it out on their resume. So they might do what Abby said and talk about quantitative courses, but they might actually put Math 1 equals, and then they talk about the concepts that were in there, like Math 1 equals, algebra, Math 2 equals calculus, or whatever it is. But I have seen that, and sometimes that is a good idea to spell those courses out if the concepts aren't clear.
Yeah, definitely. Please feel free to be as transparent in that resume as possible. And so the next big portion of the application is the personal statement. And this is a really important section. And we hope that the instructions in the application and on our website are really clear. But we do really ask that you answer all of the questions. They are all there for a reason. We kind of really thoughtfully put together questions that we want you to answer because we want to hear your story. This is really your opportunity. This is kind of your interview. So we want to learn more about you than what is just on different pieces of paper in your application. So we outline the questions that are required. There's multiple questions. And again, please do respond to all of those. what we really want to see are things like your passion for the program. Why do you want to do this online program? Why is it a good fit for you? How you plan to utilize time management. So this is not an easy program. It takes a lot of time. And that's something that, if you're a working professional or you're balancing multiple responsibilities, that can be hard to do. And so we really want to hear how you plan to do that. And then if you have any extenuating circumstances or life experiences that potentially interrupted your undergraduate career, and maybe you have some poorer grades because of that, we'd really want you to explain that as much as you're comfortable with, of course. But that kind of thing can really help us understand your academic trajectory and help us better understand why you're interested in this program and why you might be a really strong fit for this program. And then there's a couple of specific questions as well. So if you're applying for the MCIT online program, we really want to, if you might be perceived as overqualified, we want to know why the MCIT program you feel is right for you. That's totally fine. We just want to know your thoughts there. And then also if you are a reapplicant, so maybe you applied and you were not admitted, or you applied and you were admitted and life changed and you no longer wanted to pursue the program. Whatever it is, we want to hear what is different about you, about your circumstance since the last time that you've applied. So that is also a question specifically for reapplicants. But this is really the section to kind of tell your story about where academically you're from, professionally you're from, how this program will help you grow, and then, some of your goals for after the program as well. So please do take the time to, answer all of the questions. I always suggest it's a great idea to have a friend or a colleague or just someone with a fresh set of eyes to read over your personal statement as well, just to, sometimes you're looking at it so much that you don't notice small errors or small changes you might need to make. And so a fresh set of eyes can really help you there. Another thing I would say is just be as explicit when answering the questions as possible. We don't need a whole lot of flowery language or extra details. We just kind of want to get to the brunt of the answers to the questions as well. All right, so the next section, we get a lot of questions about transcripts. So as you're completing the application, there is a section for your academic background, and we require transcripts from any and all institutions that you've attended. So if you have an undergraduate degree and maybe a graduate degree as well, we would like transcripts from both of those institutions. Or if you started at one school and then transferred to a different school, we would love all of those transcripts. We really want to see all of the grades that you've received, all of the courses you've received. This is a really important part of the application for us so that we can see if you are qualified for the program. So transcripts should always be uploaded in PDF format, just so that there's no strange formatting issues. Sometimes what you see when you're uploading is not the same document that we necessarily see in our application system because of that formatting. So PDF is always safest. And transcripts always have to be in English. So for anyone who has studied outside of the United States, this is most relevant for you. And they have to be in English no matter what. And I'll talk a little bit about an option there. They have to include all courses that you've taken, the credit hours for each course, the grades you've received. It should show your GPA. It should be clear what school it's from. So sometimes, you have access to those unofficial transcripts, which is great, but some of them don't always have the necessary information. So you really have to make sure that they do have all of that information listed in the transcript and that it's really clear for us to see. Do not submit diplomas instead of transcripts. We're really looking at your grades and your courses. And then for folks who have studied outside of the United States, if your grading scale is on a scale other than a 4.0, you have to include documentation that indicates that and kind of explains what the grading scale is. Otherwise, we will have no idea. And that's not necessarily a strength for you. So it's best when it comes to transcripts to make it as easy for us to read those transcripts as possible, because this is how we're determining if you are qualified for specific programs. So for students who studied outside of the United States, it is not a requirement to have your transcript evaluated by a NACES accredited organization, such as WES, but it is highly recommended. Again, these types of organizations are really always providing GPA equivalencies, providing courses, grades, credit hours, all of those things that make it really easy for us to be reviewing your transcripts at a glance without us having to kind of go back and forth with a grading scale. And it honestly prevents us making any mistakes. So if you're able to, it's a really great opportunity. And for many schools across the United States, if you are applying to multiple schools or programs, they often do require it. So it might also be helpful for other applications you might have out there. And then if you are admitted to any programs, we do require official transcripts to be submitted, and we will have to verify them against the unofficial transcripts that you have submitted in the application. Okay, letters of recommendation. I think that these get a lot of questions. And I think this is also an area that's difficult for folks because you don't always have full control here. And that can be really hard. So letters of recommendation are a really important part of the application. They should be written from people who know you well and can speak to your strengths and your abilities, whether it's academic or professionally. Please do not, under any circumstances, have a friend or a family member write you a letter of recommendation. That is not what we're looking for here. We want to see how you will do in the program, and often people that have either supervised you or maybe had you in a class are going to be the best equipped to do that. So again, either academic or professional in nature are going to be great. And then if you are getting someone from your professional environment, please make sure that they are kind of above you in the organizational chart. So ideally a supervisor if possible, although we recognize that sometimes that might be an uncomfortable conversation, but it should be someone who is higher than you in your organization rather than a peer or a direct linear colleague. And they all have to be submitted through the online system. We don't accept them through the mail or through email. We have a really great application system that allows folks to upload their letters really easily, and we ask them a couple of questions as well, so they all have to be through the system. Ideally, these letters are going to be a little bit longer in length because that's going to show that this person knows you, that they respect you and encourage you to do this type of program. So just to give it an outline of what kind of we're looking for there. In general, we always require 2 letters, but 3 are suggested if you're able to. They all have to be in English. So please know that if translation is needed, when we get them, they must be in English. Ideally, they are on official letterhead from either the academic institution or the professional environment that they're in. That's going to be the best kind of letter. And then it should include the signature, name, and organization of the recommender as well. Again, it should range from a full page or maybe 2 pages. Those are the strongest ones that we tend to see. And outside of just kind of who they're from and how they should be written, it's really important to be having these conversations with potential letter writers as early as you can, with the acknowledgement that these people are likely going to be busy. And so you don't want to wait for this to be the last thing that is kind of part of your application. You know, you can have those conversations early. You can start sending reminders early. You can do that through the application checklist that Jackie had mentioned in a previous slide. So there's a lot of ways to kind of get ahead rather than potentially missing the deadline because letters did not come in on time. And you really want to be, as you're having these conversations, you really want to make sure that the person writing your letter is going to write you a positive letter of recommendation. We see a lot of, unfortunately, kind of mediocre letters. Sometimes they even have the wrong person's name in the letter. And that's really unfortunate because it does provide a detriment to the application. So be really mindful of who you're asking to write letters, the kinds of conversations you're having with them about writing your letter, because that, you know, does have an impact on your application as well. Okay, so English language proficiency scores. We only accept the TOEFL test. It is required for all applicants whose first language is not English. If you're an international applicant, a non-US citizen, or non-US permanent resident, you do have to submit a TOEFL score. They have to be sent directly from ETS, that's the score company, and they have to come through that system in order to be considered official. We only accept official scores. You can see the TOEFL scores at the bottom of this slide as well. So they're also listed on our website. The scores should come to that institutional code and department and major code as well to make sure that it links automatically to your application. And they do have to be received by the deadline. So please, again, don't wait till the last minute to do this because you run the risk of these not being linked to your application in time. And if they're not submitted by the deadline, we will not be reviewing your application. So the scores are valid for 2 years upon submission. So again, if you're like right on the cusp, please don't risk it. Maybe consider taking the test again. And we do require a minimum score of 100. So if you have to retake it, please allow yourself some time to do that as well. We do offer waivers for the English proficiency requirement. So the criteria are listed here if you graduated or will graduate from a program in the United States or from a school in a country where English is an official language. Or from a school where the medium of instruction is in English. So if you are currently enrolled, as long as you will graduate from that program upon matriculation, then it will be waived. Okay, GRE scores, I know that they can sometimes really stress people out, so I want to emphasize that these are optional, they are not required, but they can be a really, really powerful tool to help show some of that quantitative ability. So it's especially great if you've been out of school for a long time. Maybe you haven't been in, math classes for a long time. It can be a nice refresher and it can really strengthen an application in that way, but it's not required. If you do want to submit your GRE scores, they have to also be sent directly from ETS. In order to be considered official, you can see the GRE codes on the right of this slide as well. So same thing, you want to make sure that you're sending it to exactly the right place so that they link directly to your application. For MCIT applicants, you can also submit a GMAT, but that's for MCIT only. And if you do decide to do that, those scores also have to be official through the GMAC, which is a different testing company. Again, the test scores must be received by the application deadline, and GRE scores are valid for 5 years. So again, 5 years upon submission. So I know someone had a couple of questions about dates and things like that. So just be really aware that it's 5 years upon submission. And if you're kind of on the cusp, it might not be worth the risk. All right, I'm going to pass it back over to Jackie so that we can start answering some questions. Oh, you're muted.
I'm muted. Okay. Thank you so much, Abby. That was wonderful. Great job going through all the elements. I hope that I know everybody was able to get some valuable information from all those application tips. So what we want to do now is just take a look at some of the questions that have come through and see if we can answer some of those. So the first one that we have has to do with quantitative ability for the MCIT program. So it says, would intro computer science classes be considered quantitative ability for the MCIT program, or do you have to show you did well in math courses? I can take that one and give you a break in talking, Abby. So I mean, one would think that if you've gotten through some computer science courses, computer science, you obviously need to have math in order to be successful in computer science courses. So typically, we're seeing algebra or calculus for those folks to be successful in computer science courses. So I would think that a lot of times, if you have computer science courses, somewhere along the line, you've had an algebra course or a calculus course or something along those lines. So the thing to consider is that algebra and calculus are closely related to computer science. They help individuals to be successful in computer science courses. So those are definitely some of the more popular courses that we see. Obviously, in order to get through calculus, you've had to do or do significantly well or somewhat well, I guess I should say, in algebra in order to move on to calculus. So again, those are the two math courses we see a lot, but we do take all quantitative courses into consideration. The one thing to consider too is that we do review all applications holistically. So every single part of the application is important. So again, Abby gave you tips on the resume, on the personal statement, on everything. We do review holistically. But again, quantitative ability is obviously an important part as well, because in order to be successful in the MCIT program, you need to have quantitative ability and you need to be able to prove it on your application. So hopefully that helps with that question. There's one that's also kind of connected to that. And it says, how credible are math MOOCs? So like if you've taken, maybe a MOOC at a university, is that something that would help with quantitative ability? So here's the thing. Everybody's application looks a little bit different. Everybody has a different background. They've taken different courses. MOOCs are a great thing, but it may not necessarily be enough to prove quantitative ability for some applicants. And for other applicants, it may be enough. So it depends what other math courses or quant courses you have on your application. Here's the thing to think about. The highest proof of quantitative ability is going to come in the form of a grade or a test score. That's the highest proof of quantitative ability because it's something graded. You can't argue with that. And it's a test score, which there's no way around that. The test score is the test score. The grade is the grade. When you do a MOOC where when they're not for credit, and it's basically a completion, you've gained a certificate or maybe you've gained a completion for that MOOC. There's no credit and grade attached to it. There really is no way of knowing how well you actually did in it. So it may not be enough to show quantitative ability. It depends. So if it's not for credit, there's no grade involved, no credit involved, it may not be enough to show quantitative ability. Now, there are those applicants that do have some quantitative courses or math courses. They did reasonably well on it, and maybe they took a MOOC to brush up on certain areas. And maybe that would be enough to push them over the bar in terms of proving quantitative ability. So it really kind of depends on the whole package, on the whole picture, on the whole application, on whether it's enough or not. But the thing to consider, the highest amount of proof is a grade or a test score when it comes to quantitative ability. Okay. Let's see, number 3. Okay, so for references, for letters of recommendation, what if we own our own businesses and we've been out of college for quite a few years? What should we do?
That's a great question. Jackie, I know we see that pretty often.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes for sure. I think the best thing to do is, I think in that case, I think at that point, your clients could kind of be like your supervisor. I think we've seen that a bunch, Abby, where, yeah, don't you think?
Yeah.
So I think that maybe you're reaching out to some of your clients, your customers, you know, that you've done work for, you've done projects for. I mean, obviously, I don't know what the business is, but they could certainly be recommenders. And I think they need to state the relationship as, you know, you've done work for them. You're, you know, they are overseeing what you're doing, obviously, because they're basically paying you and they're your clients. So in that case, I would say use customers, clients, depending upon what your business is. If you've been out of college a while, we get a lot of folks, for some reason, a lot of applicants that think they have to provide an academic recommendation, and they do not. Actually, if you've been out of school for a while, it's probably not a good idea because, you know, like Abby said, you need to think about who you're asking, and you want to make sure you're asking the right people. And if all we're going to get is a letter state from a professor that says you were in their class, you did well, you showed up for class and you got an A, that's not really telling us enough. It's not, there's no meat there. We don't really know how you or how you did on projects or whatnot. So in that case, you really wouldn't want to use an academic recommendation. Academic recommendations are usually for individuals that have fairly recently graduated, or maybe they've stayed in touch with professors. Maybe they've done some work for them, whatever the case may be. But that can be tricky. But I would definitely say if you own your own business and you don't have a supervisor or a boss, then definitely reach out to clients and customers. You just don't want you don't want, like Abby said, friends, family. That's not gonna work for sure.
Yeah, especially if you have any clients that you've been working with for like a longer amount of time. So maybe they know your experience and some of your expertise a little bit more. That's also going to be better.
Absolutely. We have a question about the GRE. It says, I took the GRE in 2012, so it's no longer valid. Should I still upload my test scores?
Sure. So I'll definitely take this one. Unfortunately, if scores are not valid, you can't even send them officially through ETS, and there's not a space for you to upload them manually. We do always require that our test scores come officially through the test companies. So unfortunately, you have two options there. Either you do not submit those scores, you cannot submit those scores, or if you want to, you can retake the GRE and submit those scores.
Yeah, we see that a lot. Individuals that might have taken it years back, maybe they were in another master's program. But if they're using the GRE as that tool, like Abby talked about, to prove quantitative ability, you definitely would have to retake it. There's just no way that we would even consider the scores for that. Yeah. And then another question is, oh, great question. Somebody's asking about the dual degree program. How do I apply for the dual degree program? How many courses for the dual degree? And do you have more information and talk about that? So we have something called the dual degree program, and I should have mentioned it in the presentation. So thanks for bringing it up. But for individuals that are starting in the MCIT program, they're applying to the MCIT program, you can dual degree from MCIT to either our MSEDS program or to our MSEAI program. So sometimes we get applicants that say, oh, I'm really interested in MSEAI, but I don't have the computer science background. So the recommendation would be to start with MCIT and then perhaps dual degree. The dual degree, when you're in your last semester of MCIT, that's when you would apply to the dual degree program. So you must complete and graduate from MCIT, and then you can matriculate into that second program. So you apply in your last semester of MCIT. It's an abbreviated application, so you do not have to go through what you're going through now. It's very abbreviated. I don't believe there's any letters of recommendation. It's basically like a form that you have to complete. Maybe you attach your Penn transcripts. And then as long as you have the grade point average is a 3.5, so you need a 3.5 to be accepted to the dual degree program, then you matriculate right into it. And the best thing about it, and the reason why it's so enticing, is that you bring 4 courses with you. So 4 courses from MCIT would count for that second degree. So 4 courses would either count for MSEDS or 4 courses would count for MSEAI. So that only leaves you 6 additional courses to complete that second degree. Okay, so it's really a valuable and a big incentive. And we do have quite a few MCIT students that are considering dual degree. The only thing that I always urge and that the admissions team urges you to do and recommends is that once you get accepted, hopefully accepted to the MCIT program, you definitely want to let your advisors know this is what you're thinking about, even if you don't see it through, because you want to make sure you're taking the right courses. You want to take the courses that are going to align with that second program so that you have the 4 courses to move into the second degree program when you're in the dual degree. So it's important to keep your advisors in tune to what you're thinking with the dual degree program. But that was a great question. And hopefully that's answered, you know, provides the answers to that and also gives others more information about that. Next question has to do with letters of recommendation. We tend to get a lot of questions on letters of recommendation. So for references, is it better to have a reference you've worked with a long time, but knew a very long time, or is it better to have recommendations from someone you currently work with, but you haven't been working for them for all that long? So, somebody you've worked with for a while, but you don't work with them any longer, or maybe somebody that you just recently started with.
Yeah, I'll take this question. So that's a really good question, and it's always better to have more options than fewer options, I always say. In this situation, I would really advise you to go with whoever you think will be better at explaining your skill sets, your strengths, whoever you think will do a better job at kind of championing you in this program is going to be the better person to go with. Either are certainly great options for this, professional letter of recommendation. But I would really go with whoever you think is going to write a more positive letter as a whole, and who can really speak to your experience. So it would really depend on you and that situation. But again, you really want to aim for most positive and most able to really speak to your abilities.
Yeah, and I think that totally, Abby, goes back to what you said about the who you should ask. And, if you really want to think about not necessarily the writing skills, but like how in depth you think they're going to get, because you do want people to give the reason on why they think you're going to be excellent for this program. So if you're choosing somebody that, writes quick and writes in kind of short sentences and doesn't get into a lot of detail, that's probably not going to be the best recommender. So I think, Abby's hitting the nail on the head with this one for sure. Okay. Next question has to do with the personal statement, Abby, and it says, does it have to be an essay format, or can it be like question, answer, question, answer?
Sure. Again, I would say that this really depends on what feels best for you as the writer. Just know that given the word count, sometimes listing the question out can take away from the word count. So be mindful of that so you don't go over. But we just want to make sure that you're answering the question. So truly, whichever way you do that works great for us, as long as all the answers are there, and it's pretty clear that the answers are there. So I would say it's up to you and how you prefer to write. Again, I would just kind of stay away from more of the like flowery verbose language, and just make sure you're using your word count to kind of like get to the meat of the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess we probably could say that most times we're seeing it in essay format. There's more essay format than there is question answers. But like Abby said, at the end of the day, it's, we're looking at what those answers to the questions are for sure. And then it looks like, this, we're getting a lot of questions about overqualification and what that means. And especially with the MCIT program. So sometimes you can be perceived with the MCIT program, if you have, say 3 or more computer science courses, you could possibly be perceived as overqualified. I guess the thing is that it still could be the right program for you, but you need to kind of explain that, and you need to let us know what's going on. So for instance, whatever your reasoning is, maybe they're computer science courses, but they didn't cover a lot of the topics that like a traditional computer science program would cover. That they didn't really get into the meat of it, or there was certain topics that were missed. Whatever the case may be, you kind of need to be you need to explain why you feel this program is right for you, if you're concerned at all that there's an overqualification issue. The thing to also consider is that we do review all applications for all programs. So you could maybe apply to MCIT, and we see that you have all these computer science courses, and you could get recommended for another program or accepted to either the DS program or the AI program. Goes the other way. You might apply to the AI program and not have a computer science or computer engineering degree. You're a great star applicant. You've all of the elements are in great shape, great applicant, but you just don't qualify for the MSc AI program. You could then get accepted to the MCIT program. So we do look at applications for all programs. So that does ease the tension of being overqualified or underqualified for programs, because we do review for basically for all programs. So on the flip side of that, if at the end of the day you are denied from the program that you apply to, then you need to, in your mind, think then, you're basically then being denied for all three programs, because we do look at all applications for all programs. Okay. And then there was a question, somebody said they heard about applying to the degree program, but getting accepted to a certificate program first. And they're asking if we can talk about that a little bit. Yeah, I can do that,
I'm
Abby.
gonna pass that to you.
Yeah, I can do that for sure. So sometimes we have applicants, like we said, we review for all programs that will apply to, say, the MCIT program. I'll use that one. And we're looking at the application, the committee's looking at the application, and they basically, they're pretty much meeting most of the qualifications, but there may be something in the application where it might be better to give them like a slower start to kind of ease into it. And so we might accept them, certain applicants we may accept to our certificate program. So there's a certificate program called the Computer Science Fundamentals Certificate Program. So some applicants that apply to the MCIT program could in fact get accepted to the certificate program first. You do 2 courses in that certificate program. If you get a B or better, it's a pathway. You automatically transfer into the MCIT program. So getting accepted to a certificate program first is just a pathway to the degree program. It's the same 2 courses that the student would have taken in the degree program. The courses are the same in the certificate program and the degree program, but it's giving the new student a chance to make sure that the program is right for them. And it's also making sure that they're going to be successful in the program. So kind of everybody's kind of taking a slow start and making sure that the program is a right fit for the newly accepted student. So you can't apply to our certificate program. You can't apply to the certificate programs, but you can apply to a degree program. And if the committee feels that you're better to start in the certificate program as a pathway, that is another way to get accepted into our programs. Okay. Our certificate programs are only available to Penn Engineering alumni. So you can't just if you're not a Penn Engineering alum, you can't just apply to our certificate programs, but definitely a great way to pathway into the degree program. Okay. All right. Couple other questions here. Somebody asked about and I think you did cover this, Abby, but somebody asked about how long the letter of recommendations should be. So can you just mention that again?
Yeah, absolutely. So a really potentially strong letter of recommendation is typically like at least 1 page, sometimes longer. So like a 1 to 2 page is going to be great. And typically is very strong, and it's speaking to your abilities and your strengths, and sometimes some of those personal characteristics too. And we do want to hear about, of course, different technical skills that you excel at, but we also do want to hear from kind of an outsider what you're like as an individual, what you're like as a person, because that's really important to us. We want an incoming class of people who have or want technical skills, but then we'll also be supporting their colleagues and supporting their peers. So ideally it's kind of speaking to both personal and both technical, as much as is relevant to you.
Great. Well, it looks like we have covered most of the questions. So I am going to go back and we're going to finish this up with a few things. Just a couple things okay. So if you have more questions, we end today, the webinar is over. You go back to your application and you realize, oh my goodness, I'm thinking 5 more questions I could have asked. What should you do? So the first thing that I always recommend is to go to our FAQ database. Go into the website. We have a great FAQ database to look at. You can type in your questions there. It's broken down into lots of different categories. You can look at just admissions advice if you want to, but lots of great questions and answers right on the website. So I would definitely do that. Office hours. We have office hours almost every day of the week. The entire admissions team mans office hours. I will be honest, I just added about 28 slots today. So we've added more hours for the month of October. They are really, really getting booked. So again, we added a bunch more hours today. So definitely have more questions, sign up for office hours. We're happy to help you. And again, we have them almost every day of the week, evenings and weekends as well. Lots of events during the month of October. We have a coffee chat on Friday. We have 2 coffee chats next week. Go to our events page on the website, look up the events. And if the times are convenient for you, and we try to switch up the times, sign up for an event. Coffee chats, I absolutely love. Coffee chats are group office hours. So you might have a group of 20, 30 people in there. No formal presentation. All we do is answer questions. There's usually 2 admissions people in there answering questions. You ask, we answer. What I love about it is because it gives applicants a chance. Those applicants that think they have no questions or don't know what questions to ask, they get to hear what other people are asking. And then all of a sudden it turns into a great question because they didn't even realize they had that question. So definitely recommend that you attend coffee chats. It's a great way to hear what other applicants are asking as well. And again, everything's on our events page. Go to our website, click on events, and all of our coffee chats are listed. It's how you can sign up for office hours. And we do have one more webinar. We are going to have a webinar on October 15th. It is going to be MCIT focused. So for individuals that are interested in the MCIT program and have some more questions, please join us. We're going to have a member of our student affairs team there, and she will be talking about all the resources that students have. So actually, even if you're interested in the other programs, that part of the webinar would be really beneficial because the tools for success are basically for every program. They're consistent with every program, and they're really going to talk a lot about all of the resources that are available to students as well. So I really do think the webinar would be applicable to any program that you're interested in, but we're going to spend some time on the MCIT program. And then last but not least, email us. We love to receive your emails. We get back to you within 24 hours if possible. We do our best anyway, 24 business hours, I should say. So definitely email us. It's no problem at all. We can get back to you, answer you quickly, and get those questions answered. So I think that's about it. There's no more questions that I can see. And we're really hoping that we've answered all your questions. We're hoping that we've eased your concerns. You have a month left, so make this a great month. Get those applications in, and please reach out to us if you have any questions. So again, thanks so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your day and evening, and we look forward to working with you. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.